Today, I would like to introduce Marco Royakkers to you. Marco had an impressive career in senior management, and looking back at it, he dealt with various strategic issues, which he's willing to share with us today. Marco, first of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a bit more about the time you were operations manager of a real big operation?
Well, the real big operation was the mother company, which was Otto, at that time the biggest mail order company in the world, but soon to be taken over by Amazon, by the way. I was an operations manager at the Dutch branch of the company, and we were also quite a large mail order company for Dutch standards. And I was responsible for the whole primary process, meaning from sending the catalogs, paper at that time, collecting the order forms, yes, very old-fashioned, and also orders by phone via a call center. And of course these orders needed to be processed, and packages, the goods need to be packed and delivered to over 1 million Dutch households. And of course there was a stream of reverse logistics.
Paper, that's mail, and phone,
yes.
Sounds like the Stone Age to me.
Yes sir, yeah, the Flintstones. Yeah. Yeah, it was the Stone Age in the sense, in the internet sense of the word. Because, well, in '94 I think the first internet shop was live, and we had a web shop from 1995, which was quite early. The old-fashioned mail order companies were struggling how to deal with the internet, how to use it, how to do the marketing, because in that time, well, our marketeers thought it was very creative when they could show a spread or a page of the catalog on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And of course the new web shops were struggling to get the goods to the customers.
Right,
yeah.
Okay. What were the main operational challenges?
Well, the main challenge for us was to, and also for the web shops, was to distribute the sturdy goods, the big ones, to consumers. We call those the two-man handling goods because they were either too heavy or too big or too vulnerable to handle with only one person. So these were items like washing machines, big refrigerators, especially the American style ones, were a real challenge. Furniture like sofas, armchairs, cupboards, you name it. Well, the challenge was to find a company that could do this with relatively quick, no damages, and with a good service to a reasonable price, of course, and that was a problem. And well, I had a few attempts with distribution companies who said they could do it, but eventually they couldn't. To deliver a washing machine in Amsterdam, 3 stories high, no elevator, well, it's quite a challenge. But I think it was the 4th or 5th attempt. I had a company that was really doing well, and they did a good job, but the managing director and the owner of the company always said that he wanted to retire at 60, and he was already
close to
60. So on the day that he became 60, he said, "Well, I want to do something now. I want to do nothing." So he wanted to sell his company, but he couldn't find a buyer. Management buyout was difficult because he had only one younger manager who was interested. The other 2 were also nearly 60, so they didn't want to start a company at that age. So he asked me if I was up for it, and I said yes. So that's how I started at a transport company.
Okay, and the shareholders?
I got a share of the company. Also had to buy the shares, of course, but we got the sales manager and me. We got each 24%. He did that on purpose because he wanted to sell a part to the largest customer, which was my former employer, Otto. They bought 30%, I think, and he kept 22%, so they would have the majority, the biggest customer, and he would have the majority. As a sign of faith to other stakeholders, like other customers, like personnel, and especially banks, of course, who had to finance our part of the shares.
You took over a logistics company.
Yeah.
That must have been a challenge. Tell us a bit more about it.
Well, there were three parts, three main activities. To start with the less interesting parts, there was one part who did international furniture distribution in a network of furniture distributors in Europe. It was a difficult market, shrinking at the time, also low margins, and it had about 1.5 million euros of turnover. The second part was an interesting part. It was really nice. Logistic services, we called it. This involved logistic services for several interesting companies who decorated vacation parks, hotels, cruise ships. And this was really interesting. Also flag stores. For instance, we did a flag store of Nike on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. We did the Queen Elizabeth II and a big cruise ship. I think there were 450 containers of furniture delivered there. And of course, when the upper decks were still built, the lower decks were already decorated. So yeah, this was a nice project. But this business was very volatile. Of course, one year there were maybe 2 ships even, but the other year there was nothing. So turnover was very volatile and of course very vulnerable, because there was one big customer who paid very well. So it was an interesting business, margins up to 60%. So that's good. So that was that part, and the third part was the part I've been talking about earlier, the business to consumer distribution in the Netherlands and in Belgium. It had about 2.4 million euros of turnover when I started out. Biggest customer, about 80% of the business was done by Otto, my former employee. So it was interesting that they took a share, so they couldn't leave.
Right.
And we were expecting, of course, this business to grow in the first years, because web shops were popping up everywhere.
Right. That must have been really exciting times with internet as an upcoming disruptive technology.
Yeah, yeah.
What were your strategic intentions?
Well, with this business to consumer company, we wanted to offer a full service platform for the receiving customer and the paying customer. There are two kinds of customers. For me, we always talked about customers as the people who receive the goods, and referred to the other customers as clients, the paying clients.
Right.
I wanted to deliver a full service. That was the main objective. So full service means calling the customer, make an appointment for delivery. Because if you drive to a customer's address, you have a 28%, I think, 28% chance that he isn't at home. So if you make an appointment, this rate, the success rate, goes from 72 to more than 99%. So that's one thing that needed to be done. The second thing that needed to be done, the most irritable thing when you're waiting for a delivery, is that you have to wait from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 in the evening. So
as a customer, you mean?
As a customer, yes,
yeah.
Yes, as a consignee.
Yeah.
What every respected distribution company today already can do now is to track and trace all the goods, and you can follow them on the smartphone via a 4G network. It's brilliant nowadays, but back then we didn't have 4G. We didn't have smartphones, and well, what to do? So we set up a system that would communicate with the transport management system via a board computer in the trucks, and they would recalculate the planning every few minutes. So we could predict at what time we would be at the next address, and if that was within the hour, we would send a text message to the receiving customer. So that was really revolutionary in those days. Another aspect was to deliver the goods at the place where this was being used. So a washing machine, if it needed to go on the attic, we would go on the attic.
All right.
And deliver it on that place. Why was this important? Because if customers are going to handle goods themselves, it's bound to be damaged. And afterwards we would always have the discussion, who damaged the goods?
Of course.
And yeah, well, to avoid this discussion, we delivered the goods at the place that they were used. We would unpack them so that the customer could check if there was any damage. And even washing machines would be installed in the sense that the transportation screws were, this was a security for transport, were removed, and even it was plugged in to show the customer that it worked. It wasn't a dead on arrival. So that's what we did. We took away the packaging material, we took away the old washing machine, so it was really a full service package. And of course there was the paying customer, the client, that was struggling to organize all this, because they were the hip internet guys with the square green glasses, and they knew everything about marketing and big data, etc., etc. But distribution, logistics, the core, no. So we would take away those worries and organize it for them, which meant also doing the warehousing or organizing the haulage from their distribution centers, mostly abroad, to the Netherlands. We would take away the worries of delivering, of course. We would take away the worries of reverse logistics, which was a real challenge for them, but also for us, but I had some experience. We would take care of recycling the goods, of the older machines that came back. And we would even take care of the smaller packages. We wouldn't distribute them ourselves as a transportation company, but we would deliver these smaller packages at TNT or at DHL, had good contacts. We could make sure that the electronic communication with these packages was fit for those distributors, and we could organize the tracking and tracing, etc. So we did all.
So it seems like the company really provided its customer with a valuable service delivery. How did it actually work out in real life?
Well, we did our best. The first year, I think the first year and a half, we set up all these services and fine-tuned, really made them made sure that it worked, and then business started really to grow. I think in the first, in 2005, the second half of 2005, it really started growing too fast, actually. I think business grew with 50% or something. So
oh, wow.
we had to do something because the building was too small. So
right.
we expanded the building, and when that was ready, we had a turnover. I think it was, I don't know the figure by heart. The total company grew from 4.8 to 6.8 million. So, and this was largely due to this business-to-consumer distribution. So it was really successful.
Okay. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
But the company also experienced the flip side of the internet, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Of course, the internet made everything very transparent. especially pricing. They tried to make it less transparent through type numbers, etc., different type numbers at the same washing machine, for instance. But then again, a high-end washing machine with type XR was the same high-end washing machine with type XY. So price was the only thing that could make a difference, and they started to compete very harshly, I think, in those years, because internet shops were popping up. There were a lot of them. So prices went down, and that was the only way there was. And of course there were certain developments, like flat screen TVs at that time were new, so prices were in the beginning 2,000–3,000 euros was nothing. The larger one were even 5,000 or 6,000 euros. So these kind of products could bear a transportation or distribution price of about 40 to 60 euros, depending on the weight and the volume of the goods. But then prices lowered and lowered, and for instance flat screen TVs were over a period of 2 years it went down from these 3,000 to there were also flat screen TVs that cost 300–400 euros.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so
that must really had an impact on your operations, right? It really required probably cost cutting.
yeah, we expected that to be happening, so we looked forward, like we did every year, and thought, well, what can we do? We didn't want to leave, I didn't want to leave the concept of full service, because that was what I believed in, create extra value at an extra price, because we needed to earn money, of course. But to cut costs you have other means, which is increase the density of the drops. Less kilometers driving for one delivery. So that was the main item we focused on. So in order to reach that, we sought cooperation with a partner, and this partner already did some business for us, because we were based in the south of the country, and they were based in Groningen, which was the northern part of the country, and they distributed in Groningen, Friesland, and those provinces for us, and we sat down, and they opened a second distribution center in the middle, in Almere, near Amsterdam, and we sat at the table and said, what can we do? Can we cooperate? And we thought, okay, let them do middle and north part of the country, and we did the southern part and Belgium. So we would take over their shipments for Belgium and the southern part of the country, and they would take over the middle part of the country. So this would make it denser. We had a total of, we did about 35,000 shipments per year, and it would increase to 60,000 or something like that. And the market was still growing, so this was interesting. Well, when we were during those talks, the idea emerged to merge both companies all together. And when we started to talk about that, I was quite reluctant to do that, because it were two very different companies.
Could you give me some examples of the differences?
Yeah. We didn't have any trucks. We delivered with small delivery vans that could hold maybe 20 cubic meters or 1,500 kilograms. You didn't need a truck license for that. It was cheaper, and we didn't own these trucks, so they were fast. When they didn't drive, they didn't cost money. The other company had trucks, real trucks, big 7.5 ton trucks with drivers that were in a certain payment level. Other difference was of course, this came at a price. Our price was maybe 48 euros per hour, 55 cents a kilometer. And the other ones, the other company, a large truck costs 55 or 60 euros per hour, and per kilometer more than €1. So that's a difference. We delivered after making an appointment with the consignee. They didn't. They had 24-hour shift, so what came in the evening was delivered next day. Of course, a lot of people knew when they ordered today they would receive the goods tomorrow, but not in every case. So no. They had this problem that 70 or 75% could be delivered in the first attempt.
Right.
And for the other 28% they had to do a second attempt, which was extra costs.
They didn't make an appointment.
No,
right?
no. And they were Northerners, which is, they were quite no-nonsense people. Didn't want to do the extras, keep it simple, straightforward. And we were more customer-oriented. We wanted to solve customers' problems, so we could add more value and ask a higher price.
That doesn't sound like a perfect strategic match, does it?
No. It didn't sound like a perfect strategic match at all in my ears. But my former employer, Otto, had 30% of the shares and wanted to get rid of it because they now had only, they were a customer, but they had only 25% of the turnover. We had grown. The former owner wanted to sell his shares because he wanted to get rid of it, and they had 52%. So my opinion didn't matter anymore. It was a matter of counting the stock. So I was convinced that this cooperation wouldn't be successful in the long run, and I voted against, but I had only 24% of the shares. So I lost the vote and sold my shares and had to find a new job. There weren't any quarrels or anything, but because I still helped to merge those two companies and be sure that it worked. But after a few months I left the company.
Marco, my last question. With the wisdom of hindsight, what would you have done differently?
What would I have done differently? Well, I could tell you that, but of course, I have an opinion on this matter, but maybe we should ask a talented group of graduate students.
It's up to you.
Right. Tell us what to do.
Oké. We houden daarbij. Weet je wat grappig wordt straks?